Thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Incredibly Inexpensive and Insanely Fast Enterprise File Collaboration and Data Storage. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. One, we'll have two speakers joining us today, one from Wasabi and one from the Storage Made Easy team. If you have any questions or thoughts during the webinar, please enter them into the chat window so we can address them at the end of the presentation during our Q&A session. And today's webinar is being recorded and will be made available on each company's website. So if you happen to miss or drop off early, you can certainly find us and watch this again anytime. And now for today's webinar. I'm excited to introduce you to our two presenters, Jim Donovan, Vice President of Product Management at Wasabi, and Stephen Sweeting, Director of Product Management for Storage Made Easy. And I'm going to go ahead and kick it off over to Jim.
Thank you very much, Chelsea, and thank you for everyone joining us today. Partner here, Stephen, will be talking a little bit later on in the presentation, but we first like to get started with a little bit of talk about Wasabi and the Storage Made Easy solution. So from a partnership perspective, Wasabi is a company that focuses on object storage in a public cloud offering. So our value proposition is really around price, performance, and protection. And the combination of Wasabi hot storage with Storage Made Easy's file fabric capabilities really complements what we're doing on the public cloud storage perspective by offering collaboration, sharing, and governance capabilities. And Stephen will explain a little bit more about what that means as we get further into the presentation. So from a Wasabi background perspective, Wasabi is focused on providing inexpensive and insanely fast cloud storage. We're based in the Boston, Massachusetts area. Our founders are David Friend and Jeff Flowers, who also founded Carbonite back in 2005. And you can think of Carbonite as one of the first public cloud storage services that was available in the market. The product we offer is object storage as a service. Some industry examples that we compete with are Amazon Web Services Simple Storage Service, or S3, Microsoft Azure's Blob Storage, and Google Cloud Platform's Standard Storage Service. We've been fortunate since launching our service in the beginning part of this year to store over 1 billion objects since we launched the service. And our focus is really around providing hot storage at cold storage prices. And let me explain a little bit more about what that means. So from a value proposition perspective, one of the things that attracts customers to us the most is our price, because we've designed the product from a system architecture perspective to be 1/5 the price of Amazon S3. So that's a quite disruptive price metric relative to what cloud storage customers have typically been paying for that functionality. On the performance side of things, we've designed the platform to provide up to 6 times faster performance relative to Amazon S3. Plus, we have a number of different connectivity options that will give you private, dedicated, high-speed connection capabilities into our service. That has a lot of advantage for applications where performance is equally as important as price. And lastly, on the protection side of things, the platform is designed to provide exabyte scale, 11 nines of data durability. We have a unique feature called Immutability, which is really designed to protect against accidental or malicious file deletion. We have a number of compliance capabilities and security capabilities that we'll talk about a little bit more as we get deeper into the presentation. So from a price perspective, Wasabi's flat fee of 0.0039 per gigabyte per month is truly a market disruptor relative to the existing competitors. The right side of the chart shows where Wasabi sits relative to the competition. You can see that we are less expensive than over 15 object service offerings that are out there today. Our data egress charge is also quite disruptive from a standpoint of it's certainly on the lower end of the scale relative to what other vendors are charging. But more importantly, if you take advantage of our Wasabi Direct Connect service, that cost can go to zero. So this really helps out enterprises that are looking to deal with the unpredictable nature of download costs. So by paying a fixed fee, you're able to download as much as you want from the public cloud object storage service. So it's a truly disruptive innovation that Wasabi delivers to the market. Lastly, if you've used public cloud object storage services before, you might be aware that most vendors will charge you for API calls. So every time you do a put or a delete or a list of the objects you have stored in the cloud service, you're going to pay extra for that. And that's a charge that no customers like, basically because you can add another 20 to 30% to your monthly storage bill. And with Wasabi, we don't charge anything for that. So we think that's the right way to do it. It adds predictability and manageability to the cost of public cloud object storage service. On the performance side, Wasabi is designed to provide speed that's quite a bit faster than Amazon S3. So the architecture really enables this. If you look at this chart, it talks about some sample object sizes and compute thread arrangements, and we've done a number of tests that we make available in our performance report that we show on average we're 6 times faster to Amazon S3. So this is quite helpful for a lot of use cases where you're trying to do backups or restores from cloud storage in a very fast manner, or if you're doing applications that need to talk to cloud storage and need that data set back as fast as possible. So the advantage we have over Amazon and other public cloud object storage services really helps you out in that regard. If you want some more details, please visit our website and you can get the full report as well as the test scripts that we used. Another dimension of performance pertains to the AWS Direct Connect and Wasabi Direct Connect capability that I mentioned earlier in the talk. So this really provides you a couple of different approaches to get your data in and out of Wasabi as fast as possible. So it really complements the typical public internet method of connectivity into public cloud object storage services. So if you're running applications in Amazon Direct Connect today, you can use that same facility to connect into Wasabi storage. But more importantly, you can also use a new capability we have called Wasabi Direct Connect. So if you want a dedicated private connection into the Wasabi data centers ranging from 1, 10 to 100 gigabits per second speed, that offering is available. This slide also talks a little bit about where our data centers are located. So our production data center is in the US East region today. We will be activating data centers in Europe and the US West footprint early in 2018. So from a protection perspective, protection is another important pillar of what we do at Wasabi. So we talked earlier about how Wasabi is built for exabyte scale with 11 nines of system durability. So the same type of durability you would get out of Amazon S3. It's also designed to provide the maximum system availability with redundant transport, redundant power systems. Everything that could be protected within the data center has been protected. We also encrypt all data at rest, and we integrity check that every 90 days. We talked earlier about the importance of an immutability feature, and what the immutability feature really provides you with is the capability to class mark storage buckets in a manner such that when you set the storage bucket as immutable, for whatever the retention period is that you provision when you set up the bucket, that file can't be deleted by the sysadmin, it can't be deleted by Wasabi, so it's really protected for the life cycle of that bucket that you set up from a provisioning perspective. So it's very important for different types of compliance situations like HIPAA, one of the U.S. medical compliance requirements, FINRA, CJIS, this is a U.S. criminal justice requirement, and also even the GDPR when it comes up really next year. And lastly, the Wasabi service is deployed in secure and redundant data centers certified for SOC 2, ISO 27001, PCI DSS, and FISMA compliance. A lot of customers like our price, performance, and protection capabilities, but they'll say, well, how do my existing applications work with Wasabi? We achieve this through full support of the Amazon S3 and Identity Access Management APIs. So if you have an application that supports S3 today, such as Storage Made Easy, and Stephen will talk about that in a few minutes, it looks just like another Amazon S3 application. So this is how we've been able to achieve a very large ecosystem of application partners in our short journey here at Wasabi. To an Amazon S3 compatible application, we look just like another Amazon S3 instance. So this really means you don't have to change anything on the customer application side of things to use Wasabi. We have a full list of the applications supported at wasabi.com/interop. From an ease of use perspective, another dimension of our capabilities, if you've worked with the Amazon S3 management console before, we decided to model our user interface on that. So a bucket is a bucket, an access key is an access key. The same sort of users and policy structures that's used with Amazon are also supported on Wasabi. So this makes the adoption and ease of use of Wasabi very simple to achieve. So let me finish up my portion of the talk before I turn it over to Stephen with some examples of how Wasabi is used with our customers. So from an application development perspective, you might imagine that if you're doing websites or mobile applications or enterprise applications, storage is very important for that, and the cost and the performance capabilities that Wasabi is able to provide is very attractive to the application development community. Internet of Things is a new area for us where our reference architecture for IoT is very attractive because we let you store large volumes of data and give you access back to that data in a very rapid period of time. We're also doing a lot of work in government and education, so storage for public records, police cameras, museum archives. The fact that we were recently certified for compliance with the U.S. Criminal Justice Information System requirements is very important because, as you might imagine, all the video that gets generated for all surveillance and body camera and dash camera that's going on today is very important from a storage perspective. The fact we can offer it at a cost that's significantly less what the vendors are offering today that work in this space already. Scientific research is also generating a lot of storage for us because if you look at the volume of storage, for example, that a human genome requires, it's quite significant. So the cost advantages that we offer relative to others is driving a lot of our business in the scientific and research community as well as healthcare and life sciences. And lastly, the media and entertainment segment is very important for us because, as you might imagine, all the video and the editing and the content that gets created. So I'd like to turn it over at this point to Stephen so you can talk a little bit more about Storage Made Easy and transition over to a demo so you can see the solution in action. So Stephen, please.
Great. Thanks, Jim. So Storage Made Easy was founded in 2009 and has been shipping products since 2012. Our mission is to make it easy for IT to regain control of siloed data, particularly cloud data that's outside an organization's domain and sometimes even under control of the shadow IT. We also make it easier for organizations to use this data by translating it into forms that end users and applications can readily consume. Storage Made Easy's flagship product, Enterprise File Fabric, is available on-premise, in the cloud, and as a managed service. It's used by small and large organizations alike, and with comprehensive multi-tenant support, it's popular with managed service providers too. Let's look at 3 ways Storage Made Easy works with Wasabi Hot Storage. Click. As a corporate file server, providing secure file sharing collaboration, and for enterprise governance and compliance. So Wasabi, as we've seen, is offering really fast storage for objects over the S3 API as an interface designed for modern web-scale applications. The File Fabric allows end users and legacy applications to see and use the storage as a file system. Wasabi storage can then be accessed through mounted drives on Windows, Mac or Linux, or through mail plugins. The File Fabric also adds file system capabilities such as locking, hierarchical folders, and access control linked to corporate identity providers. And there's also support for taking files with you through mobile apps and offline syncing. Next. So building on this idea of a file-oriented view of Wasabi objects, Storage Made Easy also offers a number of features for file collaboration and sharing. The ability to edit documents at the same time with Team Edit, a comments function that keeps chat associated with specific documents, the ability to mark up PDF files, document approvals, full content search, and an enterprise file sharing function doesn't mean users need to move those documents to unsanctioned public cloud sharing sites, but can actually share documents under organization's control, under the control of Wasabi Storage. And share policies can also be set according to the organizational security policies. Next. Some of the capabilities Storage Made Easy brings around data security and governance are a client-managed encryption, tamper-proof audit logging for what happened, and also real-time monitoring, being aware of what's going on right now. Support for single sign-on with an enterprise identity provider, and support for organizational roles. Several types of two-factor or multi-factor authentication. Support for trash. I mean, this trash as a concept for helping prevent accidental deletions or changes, and for users to be able to recover those is something we'll add on top of object storage. And also, of course, immutable storage options for redundancy and compliance. So let's jump into a demo now. On-premises and cloud storage into a single, easily managed file fabric with policy-based controls for governance, audit, and security. Organizations use File Fabric, as we saw, to enable workgroup collaboration, file sharing, and synchronization through a suite of desktop, mobile, and web apps. Let's have a look first at the web app. For this demo, I'm actually logging in as a tenant. The solution is deployed as a multi-tenant software appliance on-premise, in the cloud, or as a managed service. I'll log in for this tenant using a username and password. This could be tied to my enterprise identity provider. and two-factor authentication is also supported. The default starting point is the home page. It lists the major tasks available based on my permissions, and it can also be customized. I'll jump to the cloud provider dashboard. As an administrator, this is where I manage connectors to different storage providers. FileFabric supports many different types of storage and a number of cloud operations, including object storage, traditional file servers, FTP, apps, and public clouds. You can see here we have Wasabi set up as an S3 compatible cloud with 32 files and 37 megabytes. Individual users can also add their own private accounts. We can see here Mark has added his personal Dropbox account and also an FTP site, perhaps a website. This is a great way of adding corporate oversight to sharing from personal accounts, as well as making it easier to migrate data or transfer data, perhaps from unsanctioned to sanctioned data stores. I can add a new partner here, or add a new connector rather. I can choose to have a backup provider. This is where I'm adding a second provider that transparently replicates changes on the primary. It can be completely different vendor or technology or location, so it's great providing a disaster recovery backup. Let's add a Google Drive provider. I'm going to call this sales, authorize access. What's happening now is SME is going out and pulling out the object metadata for the provider in the background. The source or file names aren't changed, although this metadata, by having this under control of SME, is now searchable, and we can provide a file system like view. Once the data has been indexed, it becomes searchable. We can also present both this information as well as objects as files and folders. It can be accessed through this web interface as well as desktop apps, mobile apps, and mounted drives. Let's look a bit more at the Cloud File Manager. Cloud File Manager is providing a human-friendly view into Wasabi Cloud Storage. Wasabi uses, of course, application-friendly APIs, S3 APIs. We're mapping file operations semantics into these S3 compatible operations supported by Wasabi Storage. So creating a folder at the root creates a bucket. We can drag and drop to upload files. And the file fabric's asynchronously uploading these to a storage. If we went to Wasabi Storage, we'll refresh to see a bucket. And then we can see this data that's been loaded. From this view, we can see previews of our files. We can see previews of images, of PDF files, and of course, Office documents. We can look at when the files were last accessed, where they were uploaded from. We can also add comments to the file. Let's actually do this down here. From this view, we can also delete files. By default, files go into the trash, which may or may not be accessible to the end user by your choice. We can move files or copy files between folders, between source providers, between cloud providers. We could also edit. If we double click by default, we'll actually open a local application and be able to make changes downloading the file. Once we save or close that, the file will be uploaded back to the cloud. See, now we have another version. The same information is also available through a desktop network drive. So we can just double click this. This makes it real easy for users to access files using their favorite desktop applications. Files are automatically locked and versioned. We go back to the cloud view. We can see now that this file is locked. So if an attempt is made to edit this by another user, they will be notified or get read-only access. We can make changes here. From this view, we can also look at the comments. From the file system view, we can also use the right button to provide additional options. Sharing we'll look at shortly, comments, even locking from within the file manager. I also have a file manager open as user mark. This view is different based on the permissions mark has. We're going to convert sales to a shared folder. We will add read access for marketing, as well as sort of read, write, delete access. We also have some functional permissions here if we want to use them, for supporting the ability to share or to only view files, for example, through the web. Once we've done that and go back to Mark, Mark now has access to the sales account. In this case, though, it's read-only, so we see the grayed out files. We can also add permissions to buckets or child folders, as well as overriding parent permissions. And we can integrate with LDAP or Active Directory to pull in the organizational roles, as well as create permission groups. So, how do I share files with other users in the company or even external parties? One way is sharing links, which can be audited and tracked by administrators. Here we have support with a number of options. We can share a link that expires after a certain amount of time. We could set the download limits. We could set a password. These also, I'm going to set the password. What's also nice is I may have organizational policies that can override these, require a certain expiration date, require a certain limit, download limit. I might require a password to be set, or even that I have to provide a reason and the email address or name of the person I'm sharing this with. use password again. And now it's prompting me to download the file. I can also send links via email from within the web application. I could also share from within the mobile apps and the desktop apps as well. Let's look at some enterprise integration settings. We spoke about how Storage Made Easy adds corporate controls to Wasabi storage, making it easy to manage and use as a secured file system. SME can connect through LDAP, AD, or SAML to enterprise identity management systems to provide single sign-on for web, desktop, and mobile tools and applications. Users can then be imported, or alternatively, can be created on first login. They have a variety of controls to block IP addresses and devices on a per user basis. Roles can be imported from the enterprise identity management system as well, or created here. And there are a lot of options for fine-grained level of control over permissions. Let's look at some tools for compliance. The Shared Links view provides a list of the file shares across the system and allow IT to both monitor and also withdraw shares. The audit logs provide detailed information about user and system activities that access and modify files. Audit logs can be exported in syslogs format for tools like Splunk or leveraged by other system tools. We jump into shared team folders. We can see another view of permissions. And here's also where we can set up audit watches. Let's say, for example, we want to monitor any incoming papers in the white paper folder. We can actually just create, we'll match any file. Maybe we'll just match PDF files. And we'll send a notification to Mark. Now Mark will get an email whenever a file that matches that is created in that folder. Let's look at some system options, policies. This is where we manage the policies around what features are available, but also what security settings our organization wants to ensure and manage through the system. So, for example, we have a number of policies around file sharing. We could limit the, let's say any files that are shared for 5 days with a maximum of 3 downloads. We could require someone to enter in the name of the person they're sharing the file with. Similarly, we have settings for security, client-side encryption, different options for versioning and support for a trash. Support also for branding. It could be branded on a per tenant basis or a per appliance basis. So in review, let's just look at how these capabilities augment Wasabi storage for a number of use cases. For multi-cloud support, we have this ability now to keep the cloud synchronized, whether it be for backup or data migration. Business users can leverage cloud storage for files and are able to use it to securely share files. MSPs have the ability now to offer these value-add services on top of Wasabi Cloud Storage. For regulatory compliance, we have the ability to set centralized policies around access and sharing as well as audit and monitor what happened. And then for scientific and media use, we have the ability to easily and efficiently move large data sets. Often we want to move them locally for processing, as well as share them with other internal and external users. Thank you.
And it looks like we did get a few questions that came in through the chat, so we'll go ahead and dive into those. So the first one asks, you talked about the joint solution, something could be used as a corporate Dropbox. How does your solution compare to Dropbox itself, as well as SharePoint or Google Drive?
So Steve, why don't you take that one, since it's more about the functionality of File Fabric?
Yes, thanks, Chelsea. That's a good question. So the cloud services like Dropbox started off focusing on the consumer market. So they're focused on the capabilities that consumers need and focused on ease of use. What the feedback we get from customers who often move from Dropbox and similar services to ourselves is that they don't know where the data is stored. They also don't have the control they need over security policies. So they may have a policy around sharing or perhaps an expiration or an audit trail that they can't get from those services. And the third biggest one that's coming up more often now is regulatory compliance around organizations needing to own the control the location or the physical presence of the data center of that data. With Wasabi storage, clients have more control over where that storage is. They can also add another layer of encryption from the client side to add additional security.
Plus, I think, Steve, you and I have talked about this in the past about how with your product, you could really leverage the immutability feature that Wasabi has. So for those organizations that are looking for a private Dropbox environment where they're able to class mark some files as immutable for whatever the retired retention period is, that seems like a pretty powerful capability. Would you agree?
Yes, that's a good point, is that we can now add these Dropbox capabilities in terms of sharing without moving the files around, so they can adhere to the corporate policies around retention and security.
Yeah, plus I have to imagine, because like on a cost per gigabyte basis, I personally find Dropbox and Google Drive to be fairly expensive. And we talked earlier, this ties in with one of the other questions we got from the chat line about how Wasabi talked about our price in terms of the cost per gigabyte. So maybe could you talk a little bit about how your solution's price and perhaps how it compares to some of these Dropbox-like services? Or
Sure. Our product is priced on a per user basis. There's no cost differential based on how much storage you use, Wasabi or local file systems or local storage as well. And it compares favorably with the public cloud products, with the benefit, of course, that there's a great deal more of corporate control. And the other aspects of the enterprise, on the enterprise side, are the integration with enterprise identity management and other data storage systems.
That's a good point, because you're really not going to get that capability when you're leveraging Dropbox, for example, because you really have to leverage whatever identity they want you to use. So it tends to add a lot of complexity in security policy challenges with a lot of the customers that we've talked to.
Yes.
Great. I had another question come in. What sort of free trial options are available for the solution?
Well, I guess I'll answer first, Steve. So on the Wasabi component of the solution, you can sign up for a free trial for up to 1 terabyte for 30 days without putting down a credit card, and we work with customers to evolve that trial period as needed for whatever requirements they may have. So, Steve, you want to talk about how it works on your side?
Yes. So we have a trial as well. The trial's provided as a software appliance. However, many folk will actually just try our free service at storagemadeeasy.com. Sign up for a personal account. We give you a limited ability to add providers and less access, of course, to the enterprise features. But it's a great way to try the capabilities of the product as well.
That's right, because I think, Steve, when you and I first started working together on the solution, that's the environment that I used because I wanted to use your cloud environment to try out a lot of the good things that we talked about today, talking to Wasabi's back-end service, and I thought that was a good way to kind of get started with experiencing the solution.
Great. One more question here. How does the joint solution compare to something that Amazon might offer?
So I'll take that one first, and I'd love to have Steve offer his opinion. So Amazon, among their 80 or so different services, S3 being among them, they also have more of a more consumer-oriented service that I think they call Amazon Drive right now. And in my opinion, really doesn't have anything like this. I mean, they certainly have a back-end storage component, but they don't have anything that compares to Storage Made Easy File Fabric. So if you're in a need for a private Dropbox type of solution or any of the capabilities that Stephen talked about today, Amazon is not the place to go for that functionality. So, Steve, I'd love to hear what you have to say on that.
Yeah, so what we're seeing is that the large vendors, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, as they start to come up with capabilities around the drives, one thing to note is that their drives tend to be built on block storage and support applications running within their cloud. So what Storage Made Easy offers is the ability to use object storage, expose that as a file system, but make it visible and accessible from both sides. So I can use Storage Made Easy to look at a large genomics file or a video file, yet I can get the benefits of object storage. So beware that these other solutions, they tend to be not compatible with object storage, and they tend to only focus on applications running within the cloud. That said, we do offer our product. We have a desktop drive product that we offer through Amazon SaaS and through their desktop system, because we have customers that do leverage our products with Amazon, of course, as well. So building on that, the focus that Storage Made Easy is being sort of agnostic and multi-cloud, and giving folks the ability to then migrate data between clouds, leverage Wasabi for low-cost storage, low-cost disaster recovery, and backup.
Good point. We had a specific technical question come in too, Steve, and on the chat line. It says, can I create a share link for uploading files and share with our customers? So you want to talk about how you would do that with File Fabric?
Yes, there's a couple of different ways. File Fabric supports the concept of we call it a drop folder. So I can share out a link. Customers can then use that link, typically protected by a password, log in, and then they'll see a folder and they can drop files in that. So they use it as an upload to send files through. Another option is to use email. So we can configure an email address that's associated with a particular folder. Attachments can be sent to that email address and they'll appear in that folder. That reminds me also to mention, I don't think I did, is that we also support application interfaces such as WebDAV, FTP, SFTP. So there are other ways of moving data through Storage Made Easy into Wasabi.
Excellent. Good point. So I think, Chelsea, that was it for questions that came in from the chat line. I guess if there's nothing else from the chat line, Steve, anything else you'd like to bring up with the audience today?
I think we're good.
Excellent. Well, thank you on behalf of Wasabi and Storage Made Easy for joining us this afternoon. I want to thank my colleague Chelsea and my partner Steve for helping out today. And more importantly, I want to thank everyone in the audience for their time this afternoon. And Chelsea, you want to talk about how to be distributed in the end?
Sure. So we're hoping to get the webinar recording up by the end of the week. You can find that on our YouTube channel, WasabiTube, as well as on our website under events/webinars.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.